For your life to work harmoniously, you need to develop a harmonious relationship with time. Most people have a difficult time balancing all of their priorities. There is no greater priority than transforming your relationship with time. If you get a handle on how time actually operates, your work flows gracefully and at high performance. If you don't, it doesn't. Before I figured out how time actually works, I put in twice as many hours and got half as much done. Everything changed when I figured out the secret of Einstein Time. Now I work half as much and get at least twice as much done. Even though I understand the science behind that shift, it still seems like a miracle to me. One immediate payoff of getting the correct understanding of time is that you feel less stressed as you go through your day. That's good, but there's an even bigger reward. You free up time for creative thinking. When I give speeches to executive groups such as the Young Presidents Organization, I hear one complaint more than any other. Quote, "We don't have time to do the creative thinking that makes the biggest difference in our business." In business as well as life itself, it's easy to get so bogged down in handling details that you don't have time to make new creative breakthroughs. If you put the ideas in this chapter to work for you, you won't have that problem anymore. When you make the shift to Einstein time, you experience a major surge in your productivity, creativity, and enjoyment. The shift takes place the moment you embrace one profoundly simple truth. You're where time comes from. Embrace and embody this truth, and you can experience a quantum leap in productivity and free time. It works so well, it may seem like magic, but it's based on solid science inspired by Einstein's physics. Once you understand that you're where time comes from, you have the power to make as much of it as you want. You're the boss. I know that might sound strange, but I promise you that this is the way time actually works. Before I started teaching this concept to others, I learned it myself the hard way. About 20 years ago, in a period of great frustration and stress, I discovered that most of my stress and frustration occurred because I had time all wrong. My conception of time was so skewed that I felt either rushed, not having enough time, or bored, too much of it. Most of the time, I felt rushed, as if there was never enough time, and it was constantly slipping away from me. I never got all the things done that I needed to do, even though I felt like I was working overtime. To escape this distress I was feeling, I took a 3-day walkabout in the Rocky Mountain wilderness. I thought that perhaps a few days of dealing with fundamentals, such as thunderstorms, pumas, and such would clear my mind. On the last day of the trip, as I perched on a boulder overlooking a flowing mountain brook, I had a realization that changed my life and gave me my serenity back. I saw that my understanding of time was based on an outmoded Newtonian paradigm. In that flash of insight, I realized that Einstein's paradigm was the way time actually worked. I felt a shift of consciousness inside me. My cells seemed to rearrange themselves around the new understanding. Everything changed in that moment. And from that day until now, I've gotten everything done in half the time and have had a great time doing it. As a result, I haven't rushed in 20 years. Looked at from the outside, my life is much busier now when I had my big insight. In spite of that, I never feel hurried. You don't need a mountain walkabout to bring this awareness into play. After he heard me talk about Einstein Time at a seminar, a Manhattan stockbroker sent me an email telling me about what had happened recently on his daily subway ride to Wall Street. He said that he was running late one morning and had sprinted to catch the train. Trying to balance a cup of coffee, a bagel, and his briefcase, jammed in with other riders crowding him in the train. He started to look at his watch, but couldn't raise his arm because he was wedged in so tightly between people. He felt a wave of panic building because he couldn't see what time it was, or assess how late he might be for his meeting. Suddenly, he recalled our conversation about Einstein time. Wait a minute, he thought. I am time, and I'll make enough of it so I won't be late for my meeting. He relaxed his body and tried to focus on enjoying the moment in spite of his wedged-in state. Since he didn't have to worry about falling over, he closed his eyes, put his attention on being just where he was. Soon he reached his destination and walked out into the crisp morning air. Again, he felt the urge to look at his watch. And again, he let the urge pass. When he got to the meeting that he expected to be late for, nobody was in the room yet. He sat down alone and relished the at-ease feeling in his body. Soon people began streaming in, full of complaints about late trains and buses, slow-moving lines in coffee shops, and such. And he just smiled. Now I invite you to make the bold move of changing to Einstein time. If you're using any time management system, put it in a drawer and don't look at it again. In reality, you probably haven't been using it anyway. Einstein Time is a new kind of time management that reorganizes your conception of time at the very core. It doesn't take any time to use it. In fact, it generates time while also producing abundant rewards in creativity, feelings of ease, and financial well-being. This new way of being with time delivers 4 main benefits. 1, you get more done in less time. 2, you enjoy plenty of time and abundant energy for your most important creativities. You discover your unique abilities and how to express them. And number 4, you feel good inside. The problem. Let's take a close look at the problem that we all face, along with millions of other busy people. You probably have thought about this for quite some time. You probably have purchased one or more of the time management systems, such as Franklin Covey's system, or the one that my neighbor David Allen created. At first, you probably had the highest intentions of using it faithfully. However, after the class ended and the consultant departed, you tried to use the system, but struggled with its complexity. Eventually, if you used it at all, you kept a small part of it and quit using the rest. You may have even felt guilty that you didn't use it to its full advantage. Then sometime later, you probably bought another one. I don't want you to feel bad about this. You're in good company, mine for one. Before I figured out the secret of time, I probably studied or bought half a dozen other systems. Give yourself some appreciation for making the noble effort. Your original intention was to solve one of the most difficult problems in modern life. How to get everything done you need to do and still have time for creativity, family, and yourself. This noble intention causes millions of people every year to invest in time management systems, only to find they stop using them or that these systems consume more time than they save. The solution. Einstein Time gives you a way to expand the amount of time you have for creative expression and intimate connections. With Einstein Time, you not only save time, you'll learn how to become the source of time so you can make as much of it as you want. With Einstein Time, you'll discover how to liberate the energy you need for accomplishing your most precious activities. You'll understand exactly what drains your creative energy and how to stop the drain. The result? No more rushing, no more time pressure, no more feeling exhausted because you worked all day and didn't get any of the important things done. Instead, you have plenty of time, an abundance of energy, and the skills that will keep both time and energy in a constant state of refreshing renewal. There is no evidence that the pace of life will become slower in the future. We need ways to organize our time and energy. But the existing systems of time management are useful only up to a point and with certain types of people. For most of us, especially for creative people, Einstein Time delivers a unique set of benefits. It's simple to understand, easy to implement, and so useful you'll wonder how you ever did without it. Now it's time to slip out of the time trap you've been caught in so you can soar into the open spaces of your zone of genius. While it's possible to make improvements in your work and personal life by applying a Newtonian approach to time, you need to make an Einstein shift in order to experience a genuine liberation from time constraints. At best, a Newtonian approach gives us incremental improvements. What we really need, though, is a radical transformation, and that's where Einstein's paradigm comes into play. The old paradigm. The Newtonian paradigm of time is also its limitation. The Newtonian view says that there's only a finite amount of time available, and it must be carefully portioned so that there will be enough of it to do the things we need to do. The Newtonian paradigm assumes that there's a scarcity of time, which leads to an uncomfortable feeling of time urgency inside. It's exactly the same problem we would have if we assumed there was a scarcity of food. We'd always be hungry. We'd always be afraid that there wasn't enough food available. If you've never thought that way about time, welcome to a very large club. If you've ever thought that way about time, welcome to a very large club. There's hope, however, because while the Newtonian view is where most of us start, it is not how time actually works. Newtonian time scarcity is just a stage we're passing through. Just as Newtonian physics was a stage we passed through on the way to Einstein's breakthrough. The Newtonian time trap in detail. Newtonian's paradigm guarantees that you will always have a problem with time. You'll either have too little of it or too much. You'll either have, quote unquote, no time at all, or be sitting around with, quote unquote, time on your hands. You'll be rushing to catch up or bored out of your wits. In the Newtonian world, we're either running out of time or watching the seconds creep by. Think of how many times in your life you've heard someone say, I have exactly the right amount of time to enjoy everything I'm doing. I don't believe I've ever heard anybody say anything like that. Most people seem to live at the two extremes of the time continuum, rushing to stay ahead of the clock because they're busy or virtually brain dead with boredom because they don't have enough to do. At the heart of the Newtonian time crunch is a dualistic split. We are deluded into thinking that time is out there, an actual physical entity that can put pressure on us in here. That's ridiculous, of course, but try to tell that to a patient in a cardiologist's office. As Meyer Friedman, MD, pointed out in his classic book, Type A Behavior and Your Heart. Typical patients have a marked sense of time urgency. They're in a race with time, and their hearts show the wear and tear of it. Newtonian dualism pits us against time. In this paradigm, we think of time as the master and us as its slave. At the extreme, time becomes our persecutor, and we think of ourselves as its victim. Since time feels like an ever-present entity hovering in the background of our lives, we come to feel that we're victims of an entity that's always there all the time. Such a view is dangerous to our health, disastrous for our business, and ruinous to our relationships with families and friends. That's why I urge you to adopt Einstein Time. Not only is it a new paradigm, it can literally be a lifesaver. To get to the new expanded version of time offered by Einstein, we also need to make a few changes in how we think about space. When we're running on Einstein time, our experience of time changes because we make a fundamental change in how much space we are willing to occupy. By learning to occupy space in a new way, we actually gain the ability to generate more time. Here's a practical example. Recall Einstein's colloquial explanation of relativity. An hour with your beloved feels like a minute, and a minute on a hot stove feels like an hour. This example has everything you need to understand Einstein time and its powerful positive ramifications for how we live our lives. If you are forced to sit on a hot stove, you become preoccupied with trying not to occupy the space you're in. You withdraw your consciousness towards your core, contracting away from the pain of contact with the stove. The act of contracting your awareness away from the space makes time congeal. It seems to slow down and harden into a solid mass. The more you cringe from the pain, the slower time gets. When you're embracing your beloved, though, your awareness flows in the opposite direction, towards space. When you're with your beloved, every cell in your body yearns to be in union with him or her. Your awareness flows out toward your periphery. You want to occupy every possible smidgen of space in the yearned for present. When you're in love, you relax into the space around you and in you. And as your consciousness expands into space, time disappears. If you even remember to glance at a clock, you notice that time has leaped forward in great spurts. Entire hours can disappear in the wink of an eye. When your heart is beating with time, with your beloved, every cell is reaching out for total union. You forget about time. When you're willing to occupy all the space, time simply disappears. You are everywhere all at once. There's no place to get to, and everywhere you are is exactly the right time. Now back to the stove. I hope it's been a long time since you sat on one, so let's use an example that's much more relevant to your daily life. Let's say you notice that your belly muscles are particularly tight on a given morning. You're busy though, so you don't stop to find out why your stomach is so tight. In other words, you choose not to occupy the space of your tense belly by shining the light of awareness on it. You ignore it and hurry on. This is a costly moment because by choosing not to be aware of why your belly muscles are so tight, you sentence yourself to a day-long battle. That is a part from The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. He's breaking down time. And the reason I want to share this with you today, there's a couple more points here I want to tie into, but the reason why I want to share this with you today is one of the biggest objections, I guess, that I hear from people that we sit down with for, consultations to either become members at Hardstyle or even guys that are continuing to work with us online it's the most common one, right? I don't have time. I don't have time. There's not enough times in the day. There's not enough time in the day, right? Or not enough hours in the day, right? I don't have time to do this thing. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to eat better. I don't have time to drink. Like you get, right? Just so much we don't have time. We do have time. It's just not that important to us. Like we just kind of have to just get real and be honest with ourselves, right? Here's an example. Got to hit the gym, got to get in shape, got to go to your training session with your trainer or your coach. But you have a busy day and then you end up just saying, well, I don't have time. I'm rushed. I had to go pick up this, I had to run around, I had to do all these things. I just don't have time to go. Or your wife asks you, hey, honey, can you clean out the garage? Or can you pick this up? Or can you do these things? Or I don't have time. But I live in Texas, Corpus Christi, South Texas. If someone gives you tickets to a Cowboys game on a Friday for Sunday's game in 2 days, you will rearrange your schedule and you will make it happen. Why? Because the Cowboys are important to you. Or enter whatever sports thing or golf or whatever it is that you enjoy doing, you will make that time. You will, and that's the key word, you will make the time, meaning you are the source of time. Time comes from you. Time is not something that's out there. Like, I gotta take time to do, I need to, like, people, you hear people say, like, I need to take time to work out. That assumption is taking means like you got to reach out from beyond yourself and the time is somewhere out there that you can gather and give yourself more time. No, you are the source of time. Time comes from you and you're 100% in control of time. All right. So I've been doing 75 hard. I'm on phase 1. I'm already, as of today, I'm on day 19 of 30. I'm freaking crushing it. I'm getting ready to hit going for a max here. And I'm really interested to see how it turns out because my estimated max was 207. Not my personal best. My personal best is 290. kilos, so 639. But I kind of base these numbers that I've been pulling these last 26, 27 days around 507, so 230 kilos. And I'm interested to figure out how this is going to kind of turn out at the end of 30 days, because I'm a lot leaner than when I started. Okay, I'm about a good 12 pounds lighter. When I started this, I was at about 212. Now, as of this morning, I'm 200.2 or something like that. Body fat percentage is down. Starting to see the cuts, starting to see the definition in my midsection and all that stuff, which is awesome. I haven't seen that in many years since I haven't been competing in jiu-jitsu since 2014. But the reason why I'm telling you this is to deadlift every single day. And part of 75 hard is you got to do 2 sessions every day for 45 minutes each. And it's freaking freezing right now in Corpus as I'm making this. When I say freezing, it's all relative, right? Speaking of relativity, it's like in the 30s, low 40s, just depending. But my first 40, so it's okay, if I'm going to get in these 2 45-minute workouts, because I tell people about 75 hard, which I'm going to make a whole entire segment about this. I think it's probably one of the best frameworks to live your life by. Not one of it. It is the best framework to live your life by. It demands consistency from you, and that's my word for the year. Consistency for 2022 is consistency. It demands consistency. And so one of the first things people get hung up on is, man, I can't do 45-minute workouts. I don't have time for that. I don't have time to make and eat my meals or whatever, right? But here's the thing that I've had to do. I've had to start creating time myself, because I'm the source of time. So I've been back to my old schedule, up at 4:30 in the morning, out the door for my walk. I do a 45-minute walk, and I push it. I'm going about 4 miles an hour, which is pretty fast for a walk. And it's in the freaking cold, and it was freaking almost, freezing. And it was like drizzly, it was kind of like sprinkling. And you have to do one workout outside regardless of weather conditions. And so that sucked, but I had to do it because consistency is my focus for this year. And so I had to make that time. So out the door by 5 a.m., sometimes a little bit before. My goal is to really get out the door by 4:50, 4:55. I'm out the door by 5 at the latest. I knock out my 45-minute walk. I come inside. Right, and then on that walk, I pray my rosary. And then I do my 10 minutes of dedicated visualization, specific things that I'm focused on of what I'm going to be attaining. So I do my visualization, I pray my rosary, and I do my walk. As soon as I get inside, right away, straight to the shower, cold 5-minute shower. That's one of the requirements. Cold 5-minute shower. As soon as I'm done with the shower, I come into my office. It's about, by the time I sit down and I'm done with my shower, I'm all ready to go. It's almost 6. From there, I do my daily readings. That's one of my tasks, one of my critical tasks I'm going to do. My daily reading, my daily scriptural readings. I take notes on them. I do commentary on that. And then from there, I got to read 10 pages from a self-development book. I'll read those 10 pages. Soon as I'm done with all of that, it's about 6:30. I get the kids up. I get them ready for school. Out the door. We're out the door by 7:20-ish. They're at school. I come back. By the time the world is awake, I have gotten so much done. My first workout is done. I've got all these things done. Now all I got to really do is finish my gallon of water. I got to hit my macros and my totals for the day, and I got to get in my second workout, which is today's deadlift session. So this is something that's important to me. Consistency is important to me. It's my main focus for the year. So I have to get very intentional. And I think many of us go through life. We go through our life today. And this was me. When I say people, I'm talking about me. We go through life so unintentional. We're not intentional, and that's that's what I love about the 75 Hard program is it requires you to be intentional. You have to be very mindful and intentional to drink that water, to be very efficient with your time, and to make that time to get in your workouts, to plan ahead for what you're going to be eating. Like it forces intentionality. I don't even know if that's a damn word. But too many of us walk around unintentional. And the same unintentional approach mindset shows up in our training. We just go through the motions, as you hear people say. We're not being intentional in our training, not focusing on that skill set, on that mastery of skill to become better than we were yesterday, right? And so that's what I wanted to share today, because I've heard this like so many dang times. I've been guilty of it, and I'm just working on shifting that paradigm for me of not looking at time as time that's something that's out there, that I need to take time. I need to get more time, have more time. I'm working on that paradigm shift for me. Shifting to Einstein time. And I'm doing that because I'm on day 19. I'm doing that by getting up earlier and making that time. Back to the book. He says, this really kind of grabbed me by the damn lapels. He says, you'll never have enough money to buy all the stuff you don't really need. And you'll never have enough time to do the things you really don't want to do. Our Newtonian concept of both time and money are built on scarcity. The advertising industries thrive on the fact that they know this, and most of us don't. Advertising encourages us to want a lot of things we don't really need. It also encourages us to do a lot of things you don't really want to do. All those problems disappear on Einstein time. To get on Einstein time, you have to make one big shift. And it's so unthinkable that I've actually heard grown-ups gasp in astonishment when I've suggested they do it. It involves taking full ownership of time. It's such a bold step that very few people have the courage to take it. I'm betting you're one of those few. When we switch to Einstein time, we take charge of the amount of time we have. We realize that we are where time comes from. We embrace this liberating insight. Since I'm the producer of time, I can make as much of it as I need. By getting the truth of this statement, we make a major adjustment in ourselves. We heal the dualistic split embedded in the Newtonian relationship with time. We are no longer in an unverse us versus them relationship with time. We're the source of time. And by realizing that fact, we become the truth of it. It takes practice and keen awareness to master this concept. I'll show you how to make the most of your practice and what to focus your awareness on. If all this sounds mysterious and elusive, just remember, so did driving a car before you could do it. When I first sat in the driver's seat as a kid, I was sure I could never figure out all those complicated moves. I did, and you did. If you can do that, you can master Einstein time. It's like driving a car, but with no car. And I'll be blunt here, just as blunt as when I'm confronting limitations in my own mind. Quit thinking time is out there. Take ownership of time. Acknowledge that you are where it comes from, and it will stop owning you. Claim time is yours, and it will release its claim on you. The best way I have found to do this is to become nimble at asking a specific question. The question allows you to seize the controls of your time and your life. There is no trick to the process. You could probably take ownership of time without question simply by claiming time is yours to invent as you wish. You could do it by saying something to yourself like, I acknowledge that I'm the source of time. Look in the mirror and say, I'm where time comes from. Or if you're one of those folks who like to lecture themselves sternly and say, there's no such thing as time out there, meathead. It all comes from inside you. You are not time's victim. However, the question makes it simple and easy. To generate an abundance of time, ask yourself, where in my life am I not taking full ownership? What am I trying to disown? Or what aspect of my life do I need to take full ownership of? The answer is always blindly obvious. But we can't see it until we get humble enough to ask the question. Here's the principle behind the question. Stress and conflict are caused by resisting acceptance and ownership. Begin with time itself. Do whatever it takes to get yourself in harmony with the reality that you are the source of time. Once you're convinced, start acting as if it's true. A simple way to begin is to put yourself on a radical diet. Complete abstinence from complaining about time. This courageous move will take you out of the victim position in regard to time. When you stop complaining about time, you cease perpetuating the destructive myth that time is the persecutor and you are its victim. I found this surprisingly hard when I first started this diet. Until I went on the diet, I hadn't realized that many of my conversations contained complaints about time. Notice the conversations around you this week. See how many times you hear things like, I wish I had time to stop and chat, but I'm in a hurry. Where did time go? There simply aren't enough hours in the day. If only I had gotten another hour of sleep. Love to talk, but I gotta run. I have to get to the bank. I don't have time to do that right now. Like, these are all lies, right? These are all lies. One particular phrase I'd like you to eliminate is the common one. I don't have time to do that right now. Like many of us, you probably use it often. Based on what you've learned in this chapter, you can probably see that it's a lie. It's a lie for two reasons. Number one, time is not something you have or don't have. You're the source of it, and you make as much of it as you want. Number two, when you say, I don't have time to do that now, you're telling a polite lie to avoid saying, I don't want to do that right now. By placing the blame on time, you avoid confronting the blunt truth of the matter. Imagine that you have an 8-year-old child who comes to you while you're working on something and says, will you play catch with me? You reply, I don't have time to do that right now. Imagine, though, that child comes in and says, I just stepped on a nail and my foot is bleeding. Can you help me? You probably wouldn't say, I don't have time to do that right now. In actuality, you have exactly the same amount of time as when you used the excuse of lack of time to avoid playing catch. The truth of the matter is that you didn't want to play catch and you do want to stop the bleeding. By using time as the culprit, you place yourself in the victim position once again. You did it to be polite. And by the way, I'm not advocating that you be blunt with everyone, especially 8-year-old children. I am advocating that you stop using time or lack of time as an excuse. It's just as polite to say to your child, I want to finish what I'm working on before I play catch, rather than claiming to be the victim of time. So he talks about this concept of the time continuum, right? The time continuum is basically far left side, being in a hurry, being in a rush all the time, or far right side, sluggish and boredom. right? And that is all based on the Newtonian concept of time, pretty much scarcity, right? And so I tell you what, man, like when you love what you're in, what he talked about is how much space are you willing to occupy, right? Like the stove analogy. I tell you what, man, one of the things where I get lost in time is when I'm doing things like this, what I'm doing right now. When I'm talking to you, I'm sharing with you my thoughts and things that I've discovered and my strength training and everything that I'm creating. I love creation. I love creating things. This when I feel alive. It's literally as I'm writing programs, like just time goes by so fast. I love creating not just one thing, but sometimes 2 and 3 things at a time. So that's what I want to share with you today, man. Just know that there's no such thing as taking time. Because if you have this mindset of I need to take time, like, oh man, I need to take time to work out, I need to take time to spend time with, like I need to take time to do whatever, that means that time is out there. You want to focus on I need to make time, meaning time is from you, right? Make plenty of time to master some of these principles. And I encourage you to be on the lookout for constant complaints about time that come out of your mouth or go through your mind. And as you spot them, eliminate them one by one. So that is from Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. You're the source of time, man. I'm just as guilty. If you catch yourself, just be mindful. Shine that light of awareness on it. Times when you're saying, I don't have time. I ran out of time. That kind of thing. Think about that. And I even wrote up a small little blog post. It was called Time Was Never the Issue. And you can check that out. I'll drop that it's just a quick little note. I'll drop that in the description area. But that's pretty much it, man. Shoot, man, 40-minute video. I appreciate you watching. Appreciate you listening past this. And let me know your thoughts. Let me know if how often you catch yourself saying, I don't have time. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to eat better. I don't have time to enter whatever it is that you really probably don't want to do. So it's all about being intentional, living life with intention. You're the source of time, and you can make as much of it as you want. Appreciate you watching. See you on the next episode. Peace.